This is our time. The main news at this hour. I'm Yulia Gorovaya in the studio. Hello. The Ukrainian side is actively preparing for the upcoming meeting between the presidents of Ukraine and the United States. There is intensive coordination with partners underway. The head of the Ukrainian state announced this yesterday. Volodymyr Zelensky also emphasized that there is a shared understanding of the need for a conversation at the leaders' level in order to clarify all the details and determine which steps are necessary and will work to achieve a just peace. I would also like to note that the meeting between the Ukrainian and American presidents in Washington is already scheduled for tomorrow, August 18th. Volodymyr Zelensky also thanked the European leaders for their support and stressed that Russia must be forced to coexist peacefully with its neighbors for decades to come.
Russia rejects numerous demands for a ceasefire and still has not specified when it will stop the killings. This complicates the situation. But together, we are all working for peace and security. Ending the killings is a key element in bringing the war to an end. We welcome the principled statement from our partners in Northern Europe and the Baltic states. We are grateful for the very significant assistance. Unity among all strengthens each individual. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Let me also remind you that the leaders of the Northern European and Baltic countries signed a joint statement expressing their support for Ukraine after the summit in Alaska. The authors of the letter welcomed the peaceful efforts of U.S. President Donald Trump and also emphasized that Putin cannot be trusted, meaning the next step toward peace must be taken together with Ukraine. They accused the Kremlin dictator of gross violations of international law, imperial ambitions, and escalating violence. But the coming weeks will show whether Russia is truly seeking peace. This was stated by Latvian President Edgars Rinkēvičs. He emphasized the need for serious security guarantees for Ukraine and called for continued pressure on the Russian Federation.
We see that the U.S. President and Putin have talked quite a lot about what the next steps could be regarding a political settlement. Unfortunately, there is still no decision on a ceasefire, and Russia continues its aggression against Ukraine. But what is very important, and what we highly value, is that the U.S. administration and president are actively consulting with European leaders and the president of Ukraine. We are discussing further steps. If a broader agreement is reached and a peace treaty is signed, it must have serious guarantees, including military ones. Edgars Rinkēvičs, President of Latvia.
The willingness of the United States of America to join in providing security guarantees for Ukraine is good news, according to German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. According to him, the upcoming meeting between Presidents Trump and Zelensky should bring the U.S. Ukraine-Russia summit closer. If it takes place, the parties will achieve much more than just a ceasefire, the German Chancellor is convinced.
Now, security guarantees are on the agenda. In other words, the question is how to achieve a lasting peace agreement with Russia. And the good news is that America is ready to participate in such security guarantees and is not leaving this solely to the Europeans. But of course, Europeans must also contribute to ensuring Ukraine's long-term security. That goes without saying, in my view. The participation of the Americans in this process, their willingness to be involved, is good news.
But the meeting in Alaska has given new momentum to the search for ways to end the war, said Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He also expressed hope that the negotiation process involving the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, will lay the foundation for a lasting and durable peace. I would also like to note that the president supported the proposal for a meeting in the Ukraine, US, and Russia format. As expected, Zelensky and Trump will discuss the details of the negotiations tomorrow in Washington.
We welcome the summit in Alaska and hope that this new process, which also involves President Zelensky of Ukraine, will lay the groundwork for lasting peace. Turkey is ready to do everything possible to establish peace. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of Turkey, on social network X.
Russia attacked Ukraine with dozens of drones overnight on Sunday. The aggressor country launched 60 drones of various types and one Iskander-M ballistic missile. This was reported by the air forces of the armed forces of Ukraine. Thus, the defenders of Ukraine's skies managed to neutralize 40 drones in the north and east of the country. Unfortunately, there were also hits at 12 locations in frontline areas. Now, to the situation on the front. Nearly 1,500 combat clashes were recorded just in the past day. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in their morning briefing. The Pokrovsk direction remains the most difficult. There, Russian invaders tried to break through the Ukrainian defenses 51 times, but without success. On the Novopavlivka section of the front, 26 attacks were recorded. On the Lyman direction, 32 breakthrough attempts, and on the Kupiansk direction, 17. In turn, the missile forces and artillery of the defense forces struck 4 areas where Russian personnel, weapons, and military equipment were concentrated, as well as the command post of the Kremlin's army. Additionally, over the past day, Ukraine's defense forces eliminated another 900 Russian occupiers. In total, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the enemy's army has lost about 1,070,000 soldiers. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, yesterday Ukrainian defenders destroyed 4 more Russian tanks, 8 armored combat vehicles, 49 artillery systems, as well as 1 multiple rocket launcher system and 1 air defense system. In addition to these significant losses, the defense forces successfully destroyed a substantial number of 186 operational tactical level drones and nearly 90 various types of vehicles and essential fuel tankers. Agents of Atesh set fire to a relay cabinet on a section of railway in the temporarily occupied Luhansk region. This section is actively used by the Russian army to transport equipment, ammunition, personnel, and fuel to the front line. As a result of the operation, train traffic was halted. The partisans said that the enemy's logistics suffered serious damage. Volodymyr Zelensky has imposed sanctions against individuals and companies supplying technology for Russian drones. The restrictions affected 39 Russians and 55 companies from Russia, Belarus, and China. As noted by the President's Sanctions Commissioner, Vladislav Laziuk, Russia is actively investing in the development of drones using artificial intelligence. These technologies increase the drone's autonomy, accuracy, and resistance to electronic warfare measures. The new sanctions are intended to limit Russians' ability to improve these aerial vehicles. Israel is preparing to evacuate Gaza residents ahead of a new offensive, Reuters reports. According to the publication, since August 17th, Palestinians have been relocated to the south of the enclave. The Israeli military will provide them with tents and other equipment. All of this is planned to be handed over to the United Nations and other international humanitarian organizations through the Israeli Kerem Shalom checkpoint. The Prime Minister of Israel stated that all displaced persons will be in a safe zone. He also called the city of Gaza the last stronghold of Hamas. Meanwhile, mass protests in Serbia have escalated into violent clashes. For the 5th day in a row, protests demanding early elections have continued in Belgrade, Novi Sad, and Valjevo. The protesters accuse the authorities of corruption and negligence. The day before, crowds of demonstrators tried to set fire to the ruling party's offices, throwing flares and stones at the buildings. The police responded with tear gas and batons. Ukrainian officers took part in the Warriors' Day parade in Canada, the longest-running Veterans' March in the world, which has been held since 1921. This was reported by Oleg Nikolenko, the Consul General of Ukraine in Toronto. According to him, local authorities expressed their gratitude to the Ukrainian military for their contribution to the defense of global security and freedom. For Ukraine, it was also an opportunity to say thank you to Canada and Canadians for their support, the diplomat emphasized. I would also like to note that Ukrainian service members are participating in the Warriors' Parade for the 2nd year in a row.